Hello, everyone. I'm Devi Jags, and this is Sparkle On. Sparkle is your happiness, passion, and self-worth found through the power of creativity. Because you guys like Tom, my boyfriend, more than me, he's back on the show. And we're talking about something that might be a little bit more controversial. It's not technically controversial, but we're about to make it controversial. And I'm really nervous to talk about it. Are you nervous to talk about it, Tom?
Hey, what's up? Totally controversial here today. Kind of nervous.
I'm really nervous. I was up late, even past when we were talking last night, because I was nervous.
I wasn't nervous, and now I'm
Now you're
feeling the
nervous.
weight of this. It seems really serious.
Well, because it's like
It's so controversial, so it's,
everyone on Instagram thought we were talking about open relationships today, but I guess that's not what we're talking about today. But now we know what everybody wants. But we are talking about marriage. One of my favorite, not even favorite, one of the topics that I don't talk about with a lot of people, and my relationship to my feelings about marriage. And I'm about to turn 30 in 10 days, couple days, not that long. I'm going to be 30. And everybody is asking me all of the time on social media, at family events, just when they meet me for the first time and they know that I've been in a relationship for almost 8 years, when are you getting married? And today I'm coming on here to basically tell them all the reasons I have been with Tom, dear friend, for almost 8 years. And I don't know if I will ever be ready for marriage. And I bet all of you are forming opinions about me as I look into Tom's sweet blue eyes and say this to him. But it's the truth. And I'm turning 30, so no fucks given.
Say it again.
No, I think we've talked about this a lot, and Tom is not hearing this for the first time.
No, you've been saying this to some extent, even reluctantly, since basically we met.
And I think how I've changed since before I met was like, okay, when I first met Tom,
It was more drastic then. You were like, I won't even use the term going on dates.
Yeah.
I don't date people.
Yeah. And that was the truth. Like, it was like, I either slept around sorry to be so brash, but that's really was the case. Or I was in relationships with 2 people before Tom, like people that I considered like in the possibility of going towards a relationship or going towards marriage. And like, I don't know, that's just like how I was raised. You date or whatever you want to call it for marriage. And it's not just like an Indian thing, but like kind of is. But like, I don't know. It was just one of those things that even when I was in those relationships, I felt like I was still having this like haunting from my childhood about my like biggest fears around marriage. And I think really what it comes down to, even if you don't listen to the rest of this episode, is I don't think I have a bigger fear in my life other than marriage. Like, and it's been that way arguably since I've been 13, 14 years old.
Do you want to go right into it? Do you want to just explain?
Is this you prompting me to keep going?
No,
we can just end the episode here. Hi guys, I'm afraid. I've been with Tom for almost 8 years, and I actually don't know if I'll ever be ready for marriage. That's the end of the episode. No? Okay.
Sparkle on. I think we don't need to get caught up on this point, but I just think there's a very specific reason or a point in time that you can point to and say, sorry for the redundance there, but you can say, this is exactly when I know my thoughts on marriage were being formed.
Yeah. I was 13. My grandfather passed away. My grandmother and him, my grandmother was 14 when she married him. Arranged marriage is very common in India. And I don't know, my grandfather was like my favorite person in the whole world. Just watching my grandmother after that was the worst thing ever. I mean, at his funeral, she was, talking about how she didn't want to live anymore and that she had nothing to live for, even though us grandchildren were like all sitting at her feet and just all collectively grieving. And like I think it was like one of those things where there's not a lot of people living to this day that can still talk about someone that they grew up with. And I'm fully aware and do not, I'm not an advocate at all for, getting married as a child. I'm not. It's just things were different. It's different now. It still happens, obviously, but in this day and age, anyways, I think all those years and like in India, or in Indian culture, I should say, you don't celebrate after someone, you don't celebrate holidays or anything after someone who is a really important part of the family passes. And so it was like this whole year of just no normalcy. And like my grandmother still to this day, like never, ever getting over it. And you're not supposed to get over like your spouse passing away. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like there's a real trauma and mental illness that I associate with marriage. And at first it was a very juvenile response. It was like, oh, I never want to go through that kind of heartbreak. Like it was one of the reasons I still, and I will always hate like The Notebook, like never wanting to go through that, like that grief. It was a self-protection type of thing. But I also was so mad at her. I thought like for years, I just resented her. I was like, you have all of these other passions. You have all of these things that you care about. Like, yet you're making this person and this relationship your everything, that you're not going to do any of those things. And so to me, I just judged her, and I that was wrong. I mean, as I grew up and I understood trauma and I understood the actual logistics of everything that she's gone through, not just even the marriage itself, but I can't pretend like it didn't impact me. And so then when I went to college and I was allowed to date for the first time, and I actually decided like, okay, maybe college is the point where I get over this. And like,
you started liking The Notebook.
No, I did not like The Notebook. I still don't like The Notebook. I mean, it'll make me cry, don't get me wrong, but like, I don't like The Notebook. But yeah.
It's a comedy.
It's not. Tom, it's not a comedy.
You always laugh at that line, though.
What line? I don't know. Oh, if you're a bird, I'm a bird. Yeah, I like that line.
It's a great way to break any tension.
Yeah. No, I like that line.
If you're in a fight, just I'm a bird.
So, no, I think, I don't know. I feel like with the first, out of the two. The second boyfriend that I had was psychotic. Like, and I'm not saying that lightly. And that was just pure trauma all the way through and through. But the first boyfriend I ever had, it was this, I am leaving home and my roots for the very first time. And I felt like for the first time when I went to college, like I could be wrong about everything that I thought, in those teenage years. And some of it, I feel like even just the self-protection mode that I went into around relationships and marriage was also because I wasn't allowed to date. So like, it was like being allowed for the first time, but then, in some ways I knew this, like these feelings about myself with marriage. So I was like, well, I might as well just go to college and just like, like sleep around, like just be like, have fun, be like, enjoy life. Because to me, that's all I wanted was like, be passionate, enjoy life, like be the life of the party. And then I like met this guy and I don't know, I like felt like I saw a different future for myself. And then that like didn't happen. And then, we went through college, like up and down, like just, boomeranging all the time. And like, it was just one of those things that even though I tried with that person, I don't think I ever got over like what he said to me my freshman year was after he broke up with me was like, I was drunk at a party, always drunk at a party. And I was like pretending to be at the bottom of the stairs, like, cause I saw him like go upstairs at like the one party or whatever, like, I don't know, probably use the bathroom or something. And I like pretended to just like sit there, like being on my phone, checking my email. Like I cared about professors emailing me, whatever. And it was just like, it turned into this like, oh, like I heard you were saying this. And I was like, no, like I'm just trying to process like why you broke up with me, like blah, blah, blah. And he said something along the lines of like, I didn't realize this would impact you so much. Like I thought you would have like moved on pretty quickly and on to the next guy. Like it's your freshman year. And I just remember my blood boiling because I was like, oh, you don't know me at all. And for those moments that we had together, I thought you really realized that like me wanting to sleep around and like be a party girl and like be anti whatever got flipped on its side when I met you and you saw through the facade. And so then I just embodied the facade until I didn't, all throughout college. But I think the real testament too of like where for me that ended was, and like when I think I like got to the end of college and I had been through the really horrible relationship, a different one, and where I thought that was headed towards marriage and I was just not well. But like when we boomeranged back to each other, it was like I remember like for me that relationship had to be over because like I have this tattoo on my wrist and it's like an ace of spades, and it's at the time I was becoming a writer and I was like freaking out. I was like, oh, I gotta hide this from my dad, and like, but I love it. Like I never loved something so much in my life. Like I've gotten piercings, whatever. I got this tattoo, this ace of spades tattoo, and I thought it was the most badass thing ever. I like come back from winter break, I'm like showing him, and he's like, well, what does it mean? And I'm like, well, there's a lot of like casino metaphor and stuff and game theory stuff that I use in my writing at the project that I was working on at the time. And I was like, I got it so that I'll be like, always remember like one day, like when I publish a book. And he's like, well, what if your book doesn't get published? I remember stopping in the middle of the hallway as we were going up to my room. And I was just like, that won't happen. And it was just, I'm sharing this because I think it was always like, for me, and where I love Charlie XCX's new album is like, for me, I feel that thesis that she talks about in the album is my art and my relationship with my art, essentially her beliefs, like she'll die for. And that's why it's, and just to like segue, it's, marriage is not just, and my feelings about it is not just because of my own, I guess, traumatic experiences. It's also like there are plenty of times I had been sitting in classes in college and like we would be in my like, women in literature class. I remember vividly like talking to my professor about like the history of marriage. And I was like, this just screams something that like is a way to hold women in a place. And like, how can I be in one place if I want to do all of these things? And so to me, I've always felt like even in love, there's a cage in the technicalities of marriage.
Thank you for sharing. No, it's good. I mean, no, every time you tell me that, the story doesn't change, but like you tell it, you emphasize different parts of it. I think for our conversation, it's important to understand you had the perception that marriage was this one thing and that it represented something that was only ended tragically.
Yeah.
At some point, marriages just end tragically. Not necessarily because they come to an end because someone dies eventually. And I think trying to reframe that, and you talking just now about learning about marriage and where it comes from. One thing we've always had conversations about, and obviously we've had this conversation many times, which is why we're having it right now. The idea of marriage is not something that you can clearly define in one culture or in one period of time. Over the course of history, it's meant loosely the same thing, which is, like you were saying, sort of this constraint for women, probably to the end of procreation and, all the other things, which, there's utility in, but it's not necessarily love. Love is the missing
We've
missing
evolved
piece.
to that now.
Yes.
Not for the most part, because of all the rights that they're trying to strip away about marriage, but we can get into that later.
Yeah. I think love as it exists in a way that's understandable to most people, and marriage as an institution aren't necessarily things that overlap a whole lot. Like, people get married for all sorts of reasons, and we pretend like, oh, well, yeah, like love is the most important one. You get married because of love. But it's like very evident that a lot of people don't get married for love. There's still arranged marriages. It's still a thing. Obviously, people get married for security. This is an easy choice. Provides me
the pressures of timeline,
stability, stuff
the pressures
like that.
of turning 30, and
I want kids.
Yeah.
I just want to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Or maybe just, the simplicity of I just want to be married. It's a status thing. I don't want to be a bachelor.
Well,
I want to be.
It's for some reason, and this is what drives me
married.
crazy about it. And I don't like, here's the thing. I don't know also why in Indian culture, marriage feels like the biggest accomplishment of one's life. I resent that so fucking much. I hate it. I hate that. And it's not just Indian culture, but it's across cultures, especially in a woman's life, marriage is considered the biggest accomplishment. And I don't know why in Indian culture, it feels like even more so like big and grand, but I think it's conflated with weddings and I admit as well, I conflate wanting the wedding of the century, mine, right? Ours, yours, mine, ours. Is that how you say it? Whatever.
Millennium.
It needs to be huge. It needs to be chaotic, because here's the thing. When I'm ready for marriage to Tom Paolini, it will be my entire personality. But I think that's what it drives me crazy when there's external pressures on us specifically, because, and it's no one's fault, but I have never gotten on a mic and said all this dark shit about how I feel about marriage and me trying to navigate if I agree with it or not. And the fact of the matter is, it's not me not wanting to marry Tom out of spite of these beliefs and me not just forging my own definition of like, yeah, my parents got married for love. They literally like broke the arranged marriage rule. It's not like I don't have representations of love around me with other friends, with, you know, family, things like that. I'm fully aware. It's just, I feel like you and I have just never felt like it's a priority for us. And I think part of it goes back to that conversation we had years ago. But I rather you tell that experience from your perspective.
What conversation are you talking about?
I'm talking about the day I came home from therapy, bawling my eyes out, thinking our relationship was over because of me.
Okay. You came home from therapy and, well, I remember this conversation, but I don't remember exactly what was said that set you off.
Well, nothing set me off. I don't remember how or why or whatever. I guess one day I was in therapy talking about these feelings around marriage and like,
oh, I think I know.
And being scared that like I would never be ready, except I was 100% certain that I wanted to be with you and be committed to you. But I was like, but what if I don't want to get married? Like, what if this is not something I want or feel like I need? And my therapist, the best therapist of all time, was like, I mean, I also like really, I do accredit the reason that we have stayed together for almost 8 years is because of my therapist, because she helped me. Well, she definitely was team Tom. Yes, a therapist has to be team you and she was team Davy, but like she was team you. And like, I think she just kind of like ended the session of like, hey, have you ever asked Tom, like, would he stay with you if you decide not to get married? Because I think I was in there and I'm like, how could I rob Tom of this? Like, what if he wants to do the whole thing? Like, get married, have the kids, have the picket fence, live in Wyomissing, Pennsylvania for the rest of his life. Like, if that's what he wants, why am I going to be the person that takes that away from him? She's like, why don't you go home and ask him?
Thank you for reframing that. It's kind of hard for me to say.
Well, I've shared this with you multiple times, but
I couldn't remember. Well,
what was your response?
I couldn't remember.
Tom?
The issue was I couldn't remember when I remember the conversation you had with her. I couldn't remember what you like because you were crying about because you didn't just ask me.
I don't know.
You basically said, "Okay, I know I just went to therapy. I'm going back to therapy."
What?
You did. It was like a long drawn out. You told me everything you said.
Okay. And I said I'm going back to therapy? That doesn't make sense.
No, I'm saying you went to therapy. You had therapy.
Yeah.
Went through all that. That was the prescription at the end was maybe you should try having a conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, so you went through the whole thing again with me.
Yes, I did.
Which is why I was like, I don't necessarily remember exactly. Because from my memory, it was just you doing the whole dumping again. You were just saying all of these things
Dumping.
for the first
Thanks.
time. For the first time.
Thanks for putting it that way, Tom.
Releasing. That doesn't make it better. Anyway, all of that stuff. And then you were like, what do you think? I was just like, yeah, it's all good.
Well, that's not what you said.
What did I say?
You said, yeah, I will be with you. And I don't think marriage is very feminist either. And I was like, who are you?
I think I said it really nonchalant.
You said, no, you said it like very nonchalant. Like it was actually almost irritating because I was in distress and you were like, it wasn't like you were like shooing me off. Like I can't deal with this, not in any sort of way. But like sometimes when you're like calm, cool, collected, and like you're just trying to make a point about your care for me, it comes across in a way of like, it's not that big of a deal. But like you're not downplaying that it was a big deal for me. Like I didn't feel that way.
Yeah, I think, well, basically, thank you for jogging my memory on this. This wasn't on our cue cards.
It was. It says the Ellen conversation.
Yes, that's so great because we only ever had one conversation about this and her in regards to her. The greatest therapist ever. But there's only one conversation. There's only one thing to point to collectively that I would have a memory of. But no, so I took that nonchalant response because, like you were saying, it wasn't a well thought out thing. It wasn't like, oh, how should I handle this situation? You were just giving me all of this information and all of this, this is how I feel and I don't know what to do with it. And I just had this whole, I just came from therapy and had this stuff. And now I'm telling you this. And that was just my initial reaction, was to be like you said, I wasn't saying it's not a big deal. Like, I don't care. I was saying,
right.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about marriage in like a really heartfelt sense, but I don't feel strongly enough about it to be like, yeah, that's something I need to do. And that's something that's like the make or break, or, whatever euphemism you want to use to say, I need that in my life and I need that with you. And I think looking at you now, and I can think back to that time, you were sort of looking like this is how you were looking at me, like, oh, that's a weight off my shoulders.
No, it's the reason that we're able to keep this relationship as long as we have, because, I may have, like, if I was with anyone else and that was something that they need to have, especially by a certain age or like a certain point, and I was rushed to like make a decision of like, if that's what I wanted, I don't think I could have been, it would just caused so much anxiety and communication issues and pressure. And I think one of the things I've learned is the less pressure there is around me making this decision, the more I'm going to come around to what it means, not just for me, but for us. And I think one of the things I do feel extremely empowered by is the fact that there is not a single freaking person on the planet that can make a decision of if you and I are going to get married or not. And that keeps me sane. It also keeps me very, very grateful to currently live in a society that I'm not being forced into that. And I think a lot of people take that for granted, especially, it's not a thing for some women. And I don't know if there's a more like serious part about me than like my thoughts of marriage. And so, yeah, I think that's why, I mean, we've talked about this and have kept it in our circle. And I don't even know, we have been talking about it for a while. Like, what would it be like if we had this conversation and shared it publicly? I think I'm just fucking fed up.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, I know like you like had a couple points too of like, what would our timeline be? And I think like we are in a period of like just a great unknown, and that's not like the world. Yes, as a world we are, but like in our world, our individual bubble.
Mm-hmm. Well, all of the reasons that I mentioned before that people get married that aren't just love, whatever, I think those are valid reasons to get married as marriage exists within the way that it is. If it's useful for you for tax purposes, if you get, there's a kid on the way unexpectedly, or if that's something that that's your priority is to have kids. Obviously religion plays a huge role in a lot of people's desire to get married, and that spans cultures and spans time. And when it comes to the institution of marriage as it's existed throughout history, and I said this before, it's sort of shifted and changed, but it's always had this umbrella of how can we somehow remove women's ability to, express their autonomy. And I don't look at it from like, oh, I'm like being super feminist about it. It's just a simple thing. Like if you just look at it in an equality sense, it's like, well, that doesn't seem to make sense, especially in the world now where it's like a woman can be the breadwinner, or she can, whatever. Some women can't have kids, or any one of these things that is like, okay, well, the whole point of marriage before was to be this person who just stayed at home and took care of the home or was there to raise kids. Well, if those two things aren't really on the table, then where does that leave, 30%? That's like a third of women. So for me, it's really simple. And the more you look into, and I don't want to like be on the religious rant and like, because I don't think
I would love to hear your
I don't
religious
think
rant,
it's,
Tom.
I'm just saying, I don't think it's useful to like, I'm not coming at anybody for their personal beliefs, but I was like, religion is a covenant between you and God, or sorry, marriage is a covenant between you and God. And that's why you get married. And it's like a promise to God to have kids and all this stuff. And I grew up and I was Catholic, and that stuff was like, oh, okay. And
You are Catholic. Tom.
I was
no,
not.
You are not was Catholic.
I was 8 years old.
Catholic. And I am Hindu and Catholic.
I was 8 years old.
And now you're a little bit of like Hindu Catholic. I hate all of it.
I was 8 years old, and I went to the Christmas bazaar, and I got a ring to propose to some girl I was in third grade with.
Tom proposed
And
to a girl when he was 8 years
trouble.
old.
I got in trouble. She was like, "What are you doing? Like, that's not. You can't joke about that." And I was like, "I'm not joking. I'm so serious." And I was just, it was just stupid. But I never thought. I never thought that deeply about it. I never was like,
so
this
I'm
is
going to be the second girl that you proposed to. I'm not the first.
I don't really remember how the proposal went.
You didn't answer my question.
I'm trying to say, I don't know how much I really went through. If it was more like I feigned like I was doing it and I didn't really do it. I just joked about it. I think I was more just joking. I don't
You just said it wasn't a joke.
Yes, no, I know. But that's because I was like, I was acting it out, sort of, like dry run.
But see, I think like I knew about that story early on, and that was part of also what, sparked the, mental breakdown in therapy. Like, no, Tom, since a child, like wanted to get married. And I think my therapist was like, I think you just need to like talk to Tom. Like, very emotionally intelligent human that you keep bringing into these therapy sessions. But I guess like, did you, after that conversation and throughout the years, like what, and as you started to understand me and my traumas and how they're like, inevitably when you're in a relationship and then you're in an intimate relationship, one's trauma becomes another's. And like, what were your thoughts around either like timeline or how this changed even your worldview? Because it's not, it's like you may have like heard of like arranged marriages and things like that growing up, but like you were never so close to it until you met me.
Well, I think for me, as it pertains to that specifically, the arranged marriage within Indian culture, but just as it was specific to you, I was like, oh, I didn't, I didn't feel a pressure of like, oh, that's what's going to happen or needed to be that way. There was no like, oh, hey, I can't really date you because like I'm going to get married, like I'm going to get an arranged marriage. You never had that conversation with me. It was just talked about like, I'm 1 degree of separation from this happening.
Right.
But even like you said with your parents, like your parents broke that rule, and then, obviously you weren't even around yet. So they did that. They got married. They were living their life before we even came along. So you wouldn't even exist if that were the case. But
and the world would be starved without me.
Yeah. Would be less shiny.
Thank you.
I think when it comes to marriage, as I understood it throughout the progression of our relationship, and how you were saying how it sort of formed my maybe opinion about it or my worldview shifted as we've known each other, I don't think it's that I think that much differently. It's more I know how I've always felt is more aligned with what I know I feel now. I just didn't know how to express it, or I wasn't aware of, the structures that have been put in place to make me think otherwise. So when it comes to marriage being the thing that's what your goal in life is, like get married and have kids. And I think I realized very early on that I didn't want to just get married and have kids. Mm-hmm. Like I wanted a lot out of life. Mm-hmm. And if like that was a part of it, that was like good, I guess. But I really just didn't think about it that deeply. I wasn't like, oh yeah, like these are like I didn't have a checklist. You know me, I was not the write it down checklist kind of person when we first
Well,
met.
we also met when we were young. We were still 22. Like
I never had that in my personality. It wasn't. I've changed much more. I think I was resistant to being that kind of person.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to think about, my life as being a something that's written down, something that I need to follow. I really enjoyed, the freedom and honestly the privilege of just like sort of, finding my own way. And the thing about us is that, and because we've talked about this, or I've mentioned it to you back then and even more recently, was like the question of, well, why don't we just get engaged? Why don't we just get engaged and just stay engaged? Because it's like, okay, well, that's the whole point anyway. Like we're committed to each other. We don't really care about getting married because it's not going to change anything for us. Like it might change how you, again, like I said, how you file your taxes, how you do these other things, but it's not going to change the dynamic of how we feel about each other or what our goals are independently of one another, or even the family dynamics that we have. Like we've integrated, ourselves into each other as like family members. So I don't think that marriage necessarily does any of those things. It's just the wedding, the celebration of it is the important thing. And if you're not ready for the celebration, or if we're not like, oh, we can't afford it the way we want it, or like we're not sure where we want to have it and where we're going to be living, and all of those different things, like you were saying, you do want it to be this spectacle, which I agree, it should be something that's
and
awesome.
it's going to cost something, and I'm not there yet.
Yes. But that's what I was saying, that with the engagement, the idea of just being engaged for a long time and then not thinking about it. But at the same time, you were saying, well, I don't want to even be engaged. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to be engaged mindlessly, because what's the point of being engaged? And it falls back again on saying, if the marriage doesn't matter, then why does being engaged matter?
Yeah, I think it was just like, it was one of those.
The wedding, not to be vain, the wedding is what matters.
Yeah, it does, because I want the wedding to feel, okay, here's how I look at it. When I go and I finally publish a book, something that I've been wanting to do for the last decade, right? Or when you go and you accomplish some milestone that has nothing to do with me or nothing to do with anything that in regards to our relationship, no one comes out and parties to something like that. It's always excuse of like their own personal lives, which I completely understand, because as a society, we have put marriage as the pinnacle celebration.
Especially for women, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, truthfully, it sounds so stupid, but I don't get the fucking party that I want unless it's a wedding. Therefore, the wedding has to be a collective celebration of all of these things that you and I have done, either separately, together, all of that stuff. And I'm aware of that, but I feel like sometimes I'm just fighting these. I mean, some of it's just so tied to like finances, which is infuriating, but it's fighting the things that I know like a wedding shouldn't be about, or that marriage shouldn't be about. But in order to hang on to this belief that I have about having these multitudes and having these things that matter more than marriage, frankly, I'm sorry, there are some things that actually matter in my life that I feel that I prioritize more than our relationship. And I know how that makes me look. I am aware that like if you don't have a good relationship with your family and friends, like nothing else matters. But at this point in my life, there is a sort of selfishness that I'm not ready to relinquish, like at all. And to be honest, I truthfully admit, like, I don't know if I will ever be ready to relinquish that. And so that, I don't know, like, and I think it's like, I remember like in the abusive relationship that I was in, I was interning in DC at the time, and the guy wasn't from this country, and luckily he was never being like, hey, we have to get married for a green card. I don't know how it would have went if I stayed with him long term, if that ever would have been a pressure, but like he was really trying to move to the States. The marriage for green card was not a thing, probably because we both knew it wasn't going to end up going there, but like, cause we were breaking up like every other week. But it was just, I remember sitting in the Uber and the driver was also not from the United States. And, he had a green card, his wife and him lived here. And I was like, oh, like, how did you, end up getting a green card? What was the process? Blah, blah, blah. It was different because our fucking idiot just got into the White House. Like everything was like doomsday. And it felt impossible. Like him and I were ever going to be together, but it's like what I wanted at 20 years old. And the Uber driver was like, well, why don't you get married? Like that's probably the most simple way. And I said, well, I have this, and this that I want to accomplish. I don't want marriage getting in the way of that. And he said, the right relationship will never get in the way of the things that you want. And that has kind of been my North Star throughout all of this, is like, we're committed to each other. I you never have tried to get in the way of the things that I've wanted, except for one time when I was at a club dancing on a pole and you said I couldn't have money from the crowd. But that's the only time.
It was my money.
That was the only time that you held me back. But it was like, it was one of those things where even in all the time that we've been together, we are still not old people. There's still a wanting to know if it was right. And we did distance for 3.5 years and we didn't have any knowns. And like, technically, like, it's okay. Technically, even marriage does not guarantee any certainty. Life is uncertain. I'm not stupid. But what I do know is like, even if we won the lottery tomorrow, would we be rushing to get engaged? Would we be throwing a wedding? No. I wouldn't be. Because there's some things that I still want to, I don't know, feel more grounded in as it relates to not necessarily us, but like how I define what marriage means to me.
I think this is the myth busting portion of this conversation, which is just, you told me that story about the guy and what he said, and I was always like, yeah, it makes sense. And then when we were preparing to have this conversation, you said it again, and you're like, I feel conflicted about this. And I was like, well, actually, that doesn't really, he didn't say anything. That's just a euphemism of basically saying the right thing will work out when the right thing works out.
Well, I also, like, I guess I didn't finish the story because right after I got out of that Uber, my ex like made me have a panic attack, and I like didn't do any of my homework, any of the things that I had to do for my internship the next day. Like actually got in the way of my life.
That doesn't even matter.
Right, I know. I'm just saying, like,
but
it, like him saying what he said did carry a lot of weight. Like, I know what you're saying, like, oh, he didn't really even say anything, but like in that moment, for the circumstance that I was in, it carried all the weight in the world.
Yes, and it's not because of what he said; it's because of how he said it. He basically reaffirmed the idea of saying what, and it's the same thing. And this is we can talk about all these things. You'll know when you're ready. You know, or.
When you know, you know.
When you know, you know.
Yeah. I knew
when it's right,
when I wanted to be committed.
When it's right,
I knew
it'll
when I
work
loved
out.
you. Yeah.
And in that instance, he wasn't telling you, oh, you should just get married. He was saying, if that's the decision you make, whatever decisions you decide to make, if they're actually the way you feel and not because someone else is telling you to or because of whatever, then the things will work out the way they're supposed to.
Yeah.
And the whole point of marriage is, and I think waiting around for us, or, air quotes, us waiting around for the right time, you're not waiting for the right time. It's like, this just isn't something that's a priority. It's not something that I need to define this relationship by. He didn't say the right marriage won't get in the way of what you want to do independently. He said the right relationship. Our relationship is not defined by us being married. Our relationship isn't defined by individual accomplishments. Our relationship is defined by the commitment that we've made to each other to just be, to be a part of a whole. And that whole isn't something that it like represents having success or not having success, or like having children or a family or anything like that. It represents something that's completely different and separate from us as individuals. All of the things that you want to do, all the things that you're going to do, the successes that you'll have, the independent, person that you are, who is, a sparkle queen and, wants to write all of her books and do all these things. All of that stuff, regardless of me, is, like you said, is more important than you know, having a label that is, oh yes, we're married. And
But
for
I
me,
also recognize how you have played such a role in allowing the safe
let me finish.
space. Okay.
Well, on my end, sorry to cut you off, but to finish, on my end, all the things that I want to do independently of you, things that I didn't even know I wanted to do until I met you, and I can credit those things to you.
Well, that's what I was about to say.
Yes, but that's fine. I don't want those things for you. I want them for me. But I'm saying the healthiness of our relationship is that we've allowed each other to grow and to sort of want for things and wish for things that maybe we wouldn't if we were focused on just being married, or if we were focused on just coming together to live a life that is, you know, on somebody else's terms. What I was saying is like us coming together for that other independent, or not independent, but separate thing, that would be us creating a whole, which would be our marriage in that space, has nothing to do with who we are individually. Like, us individually has to exist in order for us to even get there. So if you're not going to be the whole person that you are, and I'm not going to be the whole person that I am, we can't make a whole together.
Yeah.
You know, it has to be two whole parts coming together to make something new. And I think that's like, I'm not incomplete without you, and you're not incomplete without me, and our relationship isn't incomplete because it's not, you know, contracted out to the state.
But I think
it's just, it is as it's supposed to be. It is a relationship that is undefined by anybody else but us.
And I think, like, look, it's fine if people get married in like young and in their 20s and things like that.
I disagree.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
But I
don't get married.
Stop.
This is the joking part.
Okay. But I think, like, for me, all I have felt throughout my 20s is fragmented. I've just been in an influx of in-betweens, like, this whole time. And, like, you coming into my life in my early 20s in the way that you did, at the time that you did, in the aftermath of a lot of like confusing years, did make me feel like a more whole person, and or I should say more deserving of the fullness that life and opportunity has to offer. I don't negate what our relationship has done to allow me to feel more whole. But I think for me, since I was young, it was always imperative that when I got married, because here's the thing, I can't visualize myself getting married. I never have been able to visualize myself getting married. It's coming to
somebody
me.
else.
What?
To somebody else.
Okay. I have never visualized, I've visualized lives, living life with people.
I was talking about when you said you were going to marry yourself.
Oh yeah, that's different. I visualized that party really well. Like
that's what I meant. You can't getting married to someone, literally anybody else other than yourself.
Yeah, I used to want to only have a wedding where I married myself. But it's come to me in fragments. Like, I will be brushing my teeth and I will be writing our vows speech like over and over. Like, that started happening this year. That wasn't happening before. It started happening this year. I know there's certain signs that are like bringing me to being like, hey, actually, this is something I want to do. I'll get there. But I don't visualize that, like, I guess it's wedding, but like, yeah, I don't visualize that, like, standing up and that commitment. I visualize maybe the playlist and the way that I want to come in to Trap Queen by Fetty Wap, and like I visualize the cool stuff, and but like the living together, the marriage part, all of that actually came like when I was really young. Like, I remember the first time that I would like looked at you and I was like, holy shit, I want to have this man's kids. And it was a biological response. It was really freaking weird because I never had wanted to have kids before that. And then I like met you. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess this is what this feels like. And like, there's been plenty of times where even in our arguments, like I'll be like, yeah, I'm so freaking mad at you right now. And I don't want anything to do with you. But like, I know I could argue with you for the rest of my life. And like, sometimes I don't actually know that, but like, I know that like, I see us being like older and still doing that. Right. But the actual, like, I don't know, the circus that marriage has become. Again, I think I might be conflating wedding industry with marriage, but to me, they go hand in hand. And I think a lot of other people might say, like, might give advice like, Davey, they don't go hand in hand. They're separate. Like, learn how to separate them, blah, blah, blah. Nothing in my life has ever been separate because that's not how I operate. That's not how my brain operates. That's not how, my passion operates. Like, that's how nothing in my life operates. Like, I think about this freaking podcast 24/7. I think about, my closet and the clothes that I want to wear that's not just symbolic to the, what I wear on the podcast, but what I wear out in the world. I think about it all 24/7. It all just cycles together and it all, my writing and stuff, it all is part of this. And because it's like, well, is this podcast about marriage? Yeah, because it's about this like rinse and repeat cycle of like what it means to be a passionate, creative being on this earth, and it all goes hand in hand. And so, no, to me, a wedding is not fucking separate of marriage. Just not in my life. Maybe for some people. Some people they hate their wedding. It's like the most stressful day of their lives.
I do think everything you just said, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I think the way you frame it, you're like, I can't separate these two things. You do separate them. That's the point. Is like the wedding is a celebration of something that has nothing to do with the marriage. It's just that's the only thing that I can point to and say this is when marriage starts.
Yeah.
Like you have to have a wedding to to be married. Now, obviously, you can go to the courthouse, whatever. There's ways to not do that.
Actually, if there's anything I have visualized, it's that.
Well, what I would say about that is, that's a to each their own type of thing. But you do, I think you are able to separate them. It's just specifically when it comes to that, there isn't separating them, because I know people will be like, oh, well, like, even if you're not ready, just get whatever you'll never be ready, all of those sayings. And there's truth in that, because if you never feel ready, then I think that's normal. I don't think you ever feel really ready for anything, which is probably a good thing. You're sort of that just means that you understand that things that you encounter carry a certain weight, or there's a certain responsibility that falls on you to do something or to perform, and feeling afraid or feeling nervous or anything about it means that it's just a reassurance that, yeah, you're right. This is something that matters. And when it comes to marriage, when it comes to a wedding, even if you feel so ready, you're going to be like, whew, when that moment comes, and like you said, you could be prepared for whatever. The groom, what happens if he doesn't cry when you like come down the aisle?
Fuck that.
Well, but that's my point, is saying you could be like, I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to whatever. And then no matter how prepared you think you are, you're never actually really ready for anything until you're faced directly with it. So now, some people get married a lot. So maybe they're different. Maybe people that get married more than once.
I think if there's anything I've learned, everyone has very different types of relationships. Some people never get married. Some people marry multiple people.
At the same time.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, for me, it's like, that's why I'm pushing against this, because the definition of marriage is so different across cultures, and its meaning just, it doesn't have meaning. It's supposed to mean love.
But it's also not. Like, it's not supposed to mean love.
And that's where I'm like, it's just literally at the bottom of my to-do list. And it doesn't change my love for you and my commitment to you. But I can't pretend like, okay, like, yeah, bottom of my to-do list, it doesn't mean anything to me. No, it means fucking everything to me. It means everything. It's a very hard place to be in.
Well, I think just as an addendum to this conversation, the one thing we didn't necessarily touch on was what marriage represents, or I shouldn't say what it represents, but how it interacts with our relationship, but your relationship, whoever's listening to this and trying to piece together anything out of this. And I'll preface it. I'll just ask you these questions. If we were married, would you feel more secure?
More secure about what?
At life. Would you feel more committed?
To you?
Yeah.
No.
That's the point. Is that marriage is supposed to be this thing that's this final step. It's this, oh, I'm making this final commitment. If
anything, the only thing that's going to make me feel more committed to you is having a freaking baby.
Okay.
Like that's a level different of commitment that, like, yeah, that way surpasses like anything.
Yeah. But I was just trying to point out, like, people will say anything like, oh, you should just do it for this or for that. Or, like, even if you're not initially feeling ready, like we were just talking about, will you just do it for security or to, like, reassure commitment, within the relationship. And which is funny because a lot of people say, like, oh, if you're ever, like, unsure, it's like a joke. But also I feel like people make very emotional decisions and they're like, let's have a baby when their relationship isn't going well. Or like, oh, what? I feel like I can't commit to you, or I keep making decisions that are seeming to not necessarily point towards commitment. Let's get engaged. Like, all of that mindset, I think, represents the issue with what marriage is that it's a flawed and misunderstood enterprise that people, independently of other people's marriages and relationships, try to go into it with an open mind and to take the best things that they can from other marriages and other things and sort of make it their own. But feeding into it sort of just allows it to be perpetuated endlessly into this thing that, we don't want to feed into it anymore. Like, we can both look at ourselves and say, we don't need to do this on anybody else's terms but ours.
Yes. And that's, like I said before, that's the only thing that matters to me, is that when and if we decide to get married, nobody else is making that decision.
If?
Well,
that's a question I won't ask.
What? There's a question. You have another question?
No, I just meant when you say if, I'm sure a lot of people are like, if?
Yeah.
If?
And I don't have
Isn't
an
it just
answer.
when?
I don't have an answer.
And I'm saying, yeah, that is the question.
Yeah. If and when. When and if. But anyways, thanks for tuning in on this episode that I would never care to talk about this topic again on a recorded thing that goes public. So sparkle on always. Thank you, my sparkle king, Thomas Paolini.
Tune in next week when we completely change our minds.
Yeah, no.
After the feedback.
Okay, goodbye. Sparkle on.